When giants fall from heaven, the night sky over the Australian outback burned like a second sun as something massive tore through the atmosphere. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood beside her battered pickup truck, watching the streak of fire carve a path through the stars. She had seen meteor showers before, but this was different. This thing was huge, controlled, and it was falling fast. The impact shook the ground beneath her feet, sending vibrations through the red earth for miles. Elena's seismometer, jury-rigged to her truck's dashboard, went crazy with readings that made no sense. Whatever had just crashed wasn't a rock from space. It was something else entirely. Elena had been driving back from a salvage run to Alice Springs when the sky lit up. As a former aerospace engineer turned scrap dealer, she had learned to spot valuable wreckage from a distance, but nothing had prepared her for what she found in the crater that morning. The ship was colossal. Even half buried in the earth and twisted from impact, it stretched nearly 300 meters from nose to stern. Its hull was a dark metallic gray that seemed to drink in sunlight, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its damaged sides, pulsing like a dying heartbeat. Elena had studied enough crashed satellites and experimental aircraft to know alien technology when she saw it. This wasn't human. This was something that had traveled between the stars. She circled the crater carefully, taking photographs with an old digital camera. The ship's hull was cracked open in several places, revealing glimpses of corridors and chambers within. Most importantly, she saw no movement, no signs of life. Whatever beings had piloted this vessel were either dead or long gone. For 3 days, Elena camped beside the wreck, waiting. She expected military helicopters, government agents, or at the very least, the ship's original owners to show up. But no one came. The Australian government seemed oblivious, and if aliens were monitoring their lost vessel, they showed no interest in recovering it. On the 4th day, Elena made her decision. She grabbed her toolbox and crawled through one of the larger hull breaches. Inside, the ship was a maze of corridors and chambers designed for beings much taller than humans. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on walls covered with controls Elena couldn't begin to understand. But her engineering background helped her recognize certain universal principles: power conduits, control interfaces, structural support beams. The ship was damaged, but not destroyed. Much of its internal systems appeared intact, just offline. Elena spent hours exploring, making mental notes of everything she saw. In what looked like the bridge, she found a massive chair facing screens that flickered with strange symbols. When she touched one of the control surfaces, it responded with a soft chime. The ship was still alive, just sleeping. Elena returned to her truck and made a series of phone calls. She reached out to old colleagues, friends from her military contractor days, and people who owed her favors. Within a week, she had assembled a small team of specialists who shared her vision of what they might accomplish. Marcus Chen arrived first. The ex-army mechanic had worked on everything from helicopters to experimental vehicles during his 20-year service career. He took one look at the alien ship and started planning how to repair its damaged systems. Sarah O'Brien came next, a brilliant electrical engineer who had been blacklisted from major defense contractors for asking too many questions about classified projects. She saw the ship's power grid as the greatest puzzle of her career. The youngest member of their group was Emi Rodriguez, barely 19 but already famous in hacker circles for breaking into supposedly secure systems. To Tommy, the ship's computer networks were just another challenge to solve. Together, they began the impossible task of understanding and repairing alien technology with human tools and knowledge. The first breakthrough came when Sarah managed to trace the ship's main power lines to what appeared to be its reactor chamber. The alien power source was cold and dark, but she discovered it could be jump-started using conventional electricity. They rigged a diesel generator to the ship's power grid and held their breath as Sarah threw the switch. Lights flickered to life throughout the vessel. Screens activated, displaying scrolling text in an incomprehensible language. The ship's computer systems began running diagnostic programs, checking the status of thousands of components. Tommy worked day and night to crack the ship's programming languages. He discovered that many of the alien systems operated on mathematical principles that were surprisingly similar to human computing. With patience and creativity, he began building translation programs that could interface with the ship's computers. Meanwhile, Marcus explored the ship's mechanical systems. The aliens used materials and construction techniques far beyond human capability, but the basic principles were familiar: hydraulics, pneumatics, structural engineering. He began planning repairs using a combination of salvaged alien components and improvised human solutions. Word of their project spread through underground networks of engineers, scientists, and technicians who had been cast out of mainstream careers. People who asked difficult questions, who thought outside accepted boundaries, who believed humanity deserved better than being confined to one small planet. They came in small groups at first: a former NASA engineer who had been forced into retirement, a team of mechanics who specialized in restoring impossible machines, electronics experts who had spent their careers reverse engineering foreign technology. Within months, Elena's team had grown into a proper organization. They established workshops in abandoned buildings around the crash site, powered by a growing network of generators and solar panels. The alien ship became the center of a bustling community of brilliant outcasts working toward a common goal. The Zephyrians, as they learned to call the ship's original owners, had written off their vessel as a total loss. Long-range scans showed that its quantum drive had been completely destroyed in the crash, making faster-than-light travel impossible. To the aliens, a starship that couldn't travel between stars was worthless scrap metal. They never imagined that humans would see it differently. Elena's people weren't trying to restore the ship to its original specifications. They were building something new, something that combined the best of human and alien technology. Where alien systems had failed, they installed human replacements. Where human technology wasn't advanced enough, they found creative ways to make alien systems work with Earth-based materials. The ship's weapon systems became their greatest challenge and their greatest triumph. The original alien armaments were too damaged to repair, but the mounting points and power systems were intact. Marcus and Sarah worked together to design hybrid weapon systems that used human-built projectile weapons powered by alien energy sources. Tommy made his greatest breakthrough when he successfully interfaced with the ship's main computer core. The alien AI wasn't hostile, just confused. It had been programmed to serve Zephyrian crew members, and it couldn't understand why these strange bipedal creatures were trying to give it commands. With careful programming and a lot of trial and error, Tommy created a translation layer that allowed the ship's computer to understand human intentions. The AI began accepting commands from Elena and her team, treating them as the vessel's new rightful crew. As their work progressed, they faced growing challenges. The Australian government had finally noticed the unusual activity in the outback and begun asking questions. International intelligence agencies were starting to investigate reports of advanced technology being developed by unknown parties. More concerning were signs that the Zephyrians might be taking a renewed interest in their abandoned vessel. Long-range sensors that Tommy had managed to activate showed alien ships conducting systematic scans of Earth's surface. They were looking for something, and Elena suspected she knew what. The race was on. Could Elena's team complete their impossible project before the outside world intervened? Could they turn a piece of alien scrap into humanity's first true starship? And if they succeeded, what would they do when the ship's original owners came looking for their lost property? Elena stood on the bridge of their rebuilt vessel, looking out at the dozens of people working to install the final systems. Engineers welding alien hull plating, technicians calibrating hybrid control systems, computer specialists uploading the last pieces of human software into alien hardware. They had done the impossible, but their greatest test was still ahead. From scrap to starship. 6 months after that first night when Elena crawled through the broken hull, the ship had been transformed. Where once there had been a crashed wreck half buried in red earth, now stood a vessel that belonged to no known technology tree. It was alien in its bones, but human in its heart, a hybrid creation that represented the best of both species' engineering capabilities. Elena walked the corridors she now knew better than her own home, marveling at what they had accomplished. The ship's original Zephyrian corridors had been modified with human-sized walkways and control interfaces. Alien metal had been packaged with Earth steel. Advanced gravitic systems shared space with conventional hydraulic backups. The crew quarters had been completely redesigned, where once towering Zephyrian warriors had slept in chambers designed for beings 3 meters tall. Elena's team had installed compact but comfortable living spaces for humans. The ship could now house a crew of 200, with workshops, laboratories, and recreational facilities that would make long voyages bearable. But the real transformation was in the ship's operational systems. Marcus had worked miracles in the engineering sections, creating hybrid power systems that could run on everything from alien energy cells to conventional diesel fuel. Sarah had rewired the entire electrical grid, creating redundant systems that would keep the ship running even if half its components failed. Tommy's greatest achievement was the integration of human computer systems with the alien AI core. The ship's computer now spoke perfect English and had developed what could only be described as a personality. It called itself ATLAS, an acronym for Adaptive Tactical Learning and Analysis System, though Elena suspected Tommy had chosen the name for its mythological associations. "Good morning, Captain," Atlas said as Elena entered the bridge. The AI had taken to addressing her with military titles, despite her protests that she was just an engineer who got in over her head. "Status report, Atlas," Elena replied, settling into the captain's chair they had installed. The original Zephyrian command throne had been impressive, but completely unsuitable for human anatomy. "All primary systems are operating within normal parameters," the AI reported. "Hybrid reactor is at 94% efficiency. Weapon systems are charged and ready. Propulsion systems are fully operational. We are prepared for our first powered flight test." Elena felt her stomach flutter with excitement and terror. They had conducted dozens of ground tests, static engine burns, and system checks, but today would be the first time their rebuilt vessel actually left the ground under its own power. The test had been planned for months. Elena's team had grown to include atmospheric flight specialists, former test pilots, and aerospace engineers who understood the challenges of flying something that had never been designed to operate in Earth's gravity and atmosphere. The ship they had built wasn't designed for interstellar travel like its Zephyrian predecessor. The quantum drive was beyond their ability to repair or replicate, but it could fly within a star system, and its weapons systems were more powerful than anything in Earth's military arsenal. "All stations, report readiness," Elena announced over the ship's communication system. "Engineering ready," Marcus reported from the reactor chamber. "All fusion systems nominal. Hybrid power grid stable." "Navigation ready," called Sarah from her position at the sensor station. "Atmospheric flight computer is online. Ground control radar is tracking us." "Tactical systems ready," Tommy announced from the weapons control station they had installed. "All defensive systems armed. Countermeasures loaded." Elena took a deep breath and placed her hands on the control interface. The alien technology responded to her touch, feeling warm and somehow eager. "Atlas, begin startup sequence for first flight test." The ship came alive around them. The fusion reactor's hum deepened as power flowed to the propulsion systems. Outside, Elena could see dust and debris being blown away as the ship's gravity manipulators engaged. Slowly, impossibly, 300 meters of metal began to rise from the crater that had been its home for so long. The sensation was indescribable. Elena had flown in air, craft before, but this was different. The ship moved with a grace that seemed to defy physics, its alien systems compensating for atmospheric conditions with mathematical precision. They rose smoothly through the morning sky, climbing toward the clouds. "First flight test successful," Elena announced to her crew, but her celebration was interrupted by Atlas's urgent voice. "Captain, I am detecting multiple fast-approaching contacts on an intercept course. Configuration matches Zephyrian patrol vessels." Elena's blood ran cold. They had always known this day would come, but she had hoped for more time. How many ships? I count 6 vessels, frigate class. They are broadcasting on standard Zephyrian military frequencies. Translation indicates they are ordering us to land immediately and surrender the stolen vessel. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. Marcus had come up from engineering, his face grim but determined. Sarah was already plotting escape routes on the navigation display. Tommy was checking weapons systems with the intensity of someone preparing for the fight of his life. What are our options, Atlas? The approaching vessels are faster and more heavily armed than our ship in its current configuration, the AI reported. However, our hybrid systems provide certain tactical advantages. Zephyrian technology is standardized and predictable. Our modifications make us an unknown quantity. Elena made her decision. All hands to battle stations. We're not giving up our ship without a fight. What followed was a battle that would be remembered as humanity's first real space combat engagement. The Zephyrian ships attacked with precise, coordinated fire, expecting to quickly overwhelm what they saw as primitives flying a damaged vessel. They had not counted on human ingenuity. Elena's ship moved like nothing the Zephyrians had encountered before. Where their vessels followed predictable flight patterns based on mathematical optimization, the human-crewed ship flew with intuition and creativity. Elena used atmospheric conditions to her advantage, diving through cloud layers and using weather patterns to mask their ship's sensor signature. Tommy's weapons modifications proved devastatingly effective. The Zephyrians expected energy weapons with standard power outputs and firing patterns. Instead, they faced hybrid systems that combined alien energy sources with human projectile technology, creating weapons that behaved in completely unexpected ways. Marcus's engineering expertise showed when the ship took hits that should have been catastrophic. Redundant systems kicked in automatically, rerouting power around damaged components. Human backup systems took over when alien technology failed, keeping the ship fighting when it should have been dead in space. The battle lasted 3 hours and covered thousands of kilometers of Australian airspace. When it was over, 4 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed, 1 had fled, and 1 had been captured intact by Elena's crew. Elena stood on her bridge, looking out at the wreckage scattered across the landscape below, feeling the weight of what they had just accomplished. They had faced the ship's original owners in combat, and won. Humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. "Atlas, damage report," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Hull integrity at 73%. Multiple systems damaged but operational. Estimated repair time, 6 weeks with current crew and resources." Elena nodded, then activated the ship's communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have successfully defended our vessel against 6 Zephyrian warships. 4 enemy vessels were destroyed, 1 captured, 1 escaped. Our ship suffered moderate damage but remains fully operational." She paused, looking around at her crew. These people had given up normal lives to chase an impossible dream. They had worked for months without pay, risking everything to build something that had never existed before. As of today, we are no longer just engineers and mechanics working on a salvage project. We are the crew of humanity's first true starship. We have proven that humans can not only reach for the stars but fight for our place among them. Elena sat back in her captain's chair, watching as teams of technicians began coordinating repair efforts. The ship they had built from alien scrap and human determination had passed its ultimate test. But she knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere out in space, the escaped Zephyrian ship was carrying word of what had happened to its commanders. More alien fleets would come, probably in greater numbers and better prepared for what they would face. But Elena looked around at her crew, at the impossible ship they had built together, and felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds. Now they had the tools to take their fight to the stars themselves. The age of human spaceflight had begun not with government programs or corporate initiatives, but with a small group of outcasts who saw potential where others saw only scrap metal. They had taken alien technology and made it their own, creating something new and powerful from the discarded remnants of someone else's war. Elena smiled as she watched Earth spinning slowly below them through the bridge windows. They had built their ship from alien scrap, human determination, and the unshakable belief that humanity deserved to walk among the stars as equals. Now it was time to prove they belonged there.